I've been painting murals exactly 20 years, since 2003. And so before I started painting murals, I was actually doing tattoos for 23 years, and I have 0 tattoos. And so, so they kind of started, it was that side hustle. And at the same time, I was actually DJing. And I was actually DJing at the radio station too as well. So I got to meet a lot of musicians, and I actually done a lot of their portraits. And this was back in the early 2000s. I was there for like 2.5 years. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. So after that, I started doing portraits, and then so I ended up meeting someone that wanted a portrait themselves. They loved it so much, and then they wanted for me to paint my first mural. And this was my first mural. So it was a massive piece. It took me like 2.5 months. Learned and just practiced, and yeah, I just kind of went with it. So it kind of word spread, and then I did a replica of the what is the Sistine Chapel of the Creation of Adam, and then it went to another ceiling. So back then, ceilings, mural ceilings, and the frescoes were popular. So I ended up doing these pieces of like skies and Renaissance stuff. And here's another piece at the it was a show house in 2005, and this is one that how it looks up close. And I was like literally like 24, 25 years old. Okay, so then I went to LA. Then I started doing all these offices. In fact, I was actually doing some graphic designing in a company called Quigley Simpson. So I was there for like 1.5 years. I learned a lot, anything about advertisement and graphic design. And so then at the same time, I was doing some of their murals and some cool creative ideas that they had, and it was a great experience. And so here's some of their offices that I did, and this was in Westwood, Brentwood in California, next to like Santa Monica. So yeah, it was like that feng shui was in style back in the time. And so it was this Japanese kind of Zen kind of a deal. And so they had to had a Zen person to go out there and kind of work out the layout. And so these were some of the pieces that I painted. And even I decided to paint it on the window too, just to see how it looked, and it looked really amazing. So I try to do things that you kind of paint on anything, just to kind of to see, just because I was curious. And so you'll see more of this. And this is in Newport Beach. So a theme was Gilligan Island, kind of a thing. So I was like, okay, fine. So here's some of the texture, the kind of the wood theme that I kind of put together. There's the houseboat, and inside the houseboat there's a monkey in there. So then I started doing, so I went back to the feng shui stuff, and then wanted to put this golden dragon thing, and so again, it was pretty cool. It's one of the coolest pieces I've done. It was a large piece, and then that's when the street style kind of kept in, because during that time, street art with Shepard Fairey and Banksy and all that. So I was trying to lean into that, especially during that time. It was really popular coming up at that time in LA. So here's one. This is at the ad agency too. So they do a lot of commercials, and this was the backdrop. The backdrop is actually canvas. It's all red canvas. And so I was like, this is cool. I like the feel of it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to probably stencil some TVs. And so that's where I got the idea. It's like, you know what? If I can actually apply canvas in the wall, I can actually paint on it. And you can take it out and place it anywhere else you want. So that's where I got the idea. And this is the piece. This is how it looks like. And then had all these. And they actually put some vintage commercials on there just to kind of give it that old school mid-century vibe. And so this, again, with the same theme of the contemporary art, this is the Chuck Close style. When I was in LA, that's when I kind of ended up doing these pieces for people. So you can see each and individual piece. It's like maybe an inch thick. They're all little circles and kind of give the illusion of a woman. And that's how I kind of created. I kind of blocked out the little squares to kind of give me a sense of direction. So that wasn't really complicated. This piece took me 80 hours to do. And it's just, yeah, I did maybe 10 pieces, and that's it. Probably wouldn't do it again because it's quite tedious. And here's a pool that I painted. This is in Bel Air, again with the feng shui theme at that time. And so this was really tricky because this took me 2 weeks to paint because I was using epoxy paint. Epoxy paint is very it's like working with honey. So you only have 15 minutes to use this paint, and you have to utilize it fast. So it was really tricky, and then to make it even worse, it kept raining every morning, so I had to pump out the water. So it was a really hassle. It was one of the worst, one of the trickiest challenges that I've done at first. So this is it when it's filled up, and it has this green hue to it, which is really cool. And this is the house at night when it's filled up. Okay, so then this piece, another contemporary piece that I've done. This piece I've done it with. So you can see here, this is actually a brush. It's actually, I made it. It was like 6 feet tall. The goal of this piece was to make one stroke brush, and that's it. It's a one stroke painting. It's 6 feet tall, and that's how it is. Very contemporary. And I used a little bit of this thick cement, and then nice acrylic paint on the top, just to give the illusion that you're looking out on the horizon and at the sea. But the lighting is really cool once it hits it right, but you can't see it right. But yeah, it was just with one stroke. It took me months to practice, and finally did it, and it was really interesting to do. And here's the texture, how it looks like at the sea, where the illusion of to give it the waves. And here's some of the pieces that when I was working at Colossal Media, we used to get a lot of like major ads to work with. Here's me collaborating with the other artist. This is with American Express, and there's the other guy that I was working with. So we're trying to collaborate, trying to see what we could do. I was actually was good at blending at the background, and so it was interesting to kind of learn to collaborate. And there's more here. This is at High Voltage, you know, Kat Von D, the tattoo. So this is behind her building, and it's me collaborating with another artist too as well. And this is another one here. This is one of the pieces here with Blue Shield, Blue Cross. It was black and white, and I actually had a little bit more freedom to do my work. And the thing is that you don't want to make it too realistic because people think it'll be too photorealistic, and it's like a magazine. People will not ignore it because it's just too common. So we kind of had, that's one thing what I realized about this is like, you know what, maybe I have to kind of make it more artistic to kind of get more attention. So that was a lesson for me to know that not everything to have like great skills to make everything look perfect doesn't make a difference. So I try to pull back and make it more artistic. And so again, me experimenting with all types of surfaces, just because I was curious and, you know, why not try to learn something from it. And, you know, so I did some beams, some arches, and of course some wood. This is actually a wood panel. I've kind of made it three-dimensional to make it seem like it's carved out. And then, of course, I was trying to test out some of the textures of, you know, how to make wood grains. So, you know, again, I was just experimenting, not sticking to one thing, because you'd be surprised, even small projects really tend to teach you a lot, and you can actually gain from that in the long run. And again, just kind of make it look like it's Cantera stone. And that's all hand painted, and it looks very similar to the texture that we're trying to achieve. And again, this one too, we're trying to make it look like it's an old sign. So we kind of aged it up and trying to make it look as authentic. Now this one, I tried to experiment with plaster. So the whole, it's supposed to look 3D. It kind of does look 3D from here. So I try to work with the plaster, and I to be honest, that's one of those projects that I learned that not everything can go the right way. And after painting it, it didn't give the true 3D effect, but it still looks cool. So when you actually look at it, somehow it just gives it that pop, but not realizing like it's actually plastered on there. So, but yeah, it didn't turn out right. And this is the whole scene here. Yeah, throughout even the cactuses had 3D, some of the cliffs. This is actually here in Saddlebrook. So then I had a collection called Narco Nation. This was like in 2010. So I bought this ice cream little cart, and I ended up painting it and make it look like kind of this dark, you know, cartel-looking thing. And that's another story. That's a completely different story. And here's with Univision that actually broadcasted my collection. So sadly to know, I had 40 pieces that actually were stolen from me in Hollywood. I had an event there in the gallery. So and they're still floating around. But word says, they're still talking about it and out in West Hollywood, so that's kind of a good plus. And Netflix was supposed to catch on to the story, but then COVID hit, and then so back to square one. But sooner or later, it's going to come back. It's amazing pieces. Now, chalk art. Now, with Saka, actually, it was with Leah Moz when we first started. But see this is in 2005. That was the time when I met Joe Padgett. So we've been friends since then, since 2005. And then, so these were the things that we're trying to do a little bit of the Mandalari, that's what it's called. It's actually based in Spain. I guess for the Madonna thing, it was a kind of a cultural thing to have chalk art, and so they brought it here to Tucson. So it was like a Madonari. So I made a little hybrid of that. So then I started doing the 3D chalk art. So I did that for a while, maybe a good 10 years. This is out in Boston. Red Bull sponsored me, and which was really, really nice of them to do that, and quite honored. And here's some other pieces of 3D chalk art. So now this was my first 3D chalk art. I was just, again, testing out, experimenting. I was like, well, we'll see where it goes. And then so I had to use a certain type of grid and just experiment. And surprisingly, it turned out exactly how it came out. Better, actually, than what I expected. So then that caught on. So I made all these 3D effects. And I like putting kids on there because it's just funny. There's me. And this when it got rained on. But it got salvaged, so. Oh, there's the one that where me and Joe met. Okay, and then there's another one here. It's just a personal piece. So there was kind of a hybrid of Mona Lisa and the Guadalupe, so it kind of represented Tucson, reflecting that. And this piece was actually I got in trouble for using. The Catholic Church called me and they said, you shouldn't be doing this. I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, I'm only 25. I don't know. So I thought that was cool. And then Heineken sponsored me to do this Day of the Dead theme. So then that's where it started to kind of do more of the cultural thing. So Guadalajara Grill is that piece here that I did. In fact, with this, I told them, it's like, look, if I want to do my research, I like to do my research really, really, really thoroughly, because so I told him, I want to fly down to Guadalajara and capture what it really represents. And sure enough, I went there and took some pictures and kind of captured that. And it still continues to have that, which is great. It's an amazing city. Here's more. These are all the Mexican golden stars, the actors from the 60s and 50s and 70s. So it's at the bar to kind of make them seem like they're all having a good time. So they're all Mexican celebrities. But the thing is that most of these pictures were black and white, and I had to put every single picture in black and white and photoshopped it, and thanks to Adobe, and so I put it into color, and then I painted it, and that's how it looks. We wanted to capture the old school kind of 50s vibe, but it came out really cool. I just love the way it came out, the old school vibe. Now, so I painted this on a canvas, and the original painting there, it still exists there, but it's been covered with the canvas. So anytime I do any interior pieces, I try to paint it on a canvas because it can be taken down. People tend to get attached to these pieces, and you cannot take the wall with them anywhere they go. So it's easy for me that then adding the canvas and I paint it, they could take it down, roll it up, or do whatever with it. And so before the fire happened in Guadalajara, that was set there. And if you actually notice it, on the right side, there's actually smoke smudges from when the smoke caught on fire. But I mean, the restaurant caught on fire. But luckily, we took it out, we replaced it, and because of that, it got salvaged. And here's Caetepas. This is a theme of like of the outside, put it in the inside, and then just kind of get a sense like you're outside, which is great. If you stand right next to it, it seems like you're there. So again, perspective, and like you have to have that horizon line to make it look more natural to where it's at. And of course, the Mexican, I'm a huge fan of these Mexican menus. I mean, it has so much character, and you can see it's been etched out, and the prices are changed, and the colors are changed. I'm a huge fan of it. I don't know why. And then, so again, here's this one right here. Again, using the horizon line, it just captures something that's more of a natural look. The only thing that is not painted is the bench. The rest is all hand painted. And then here it is on the other side, and here it is up close. The detail, just like I went bonkers over it. So yeah, again, that's what I remember. It's the canvas. Here's the sample of the canvas that I, when I paint and I try to put it together. And here it is being set up. And this is texture here. Now, this is a piece of board, and I had to find a way to give it a to make it look natural, but you can see the texture of what's behind it and try to smooth it out as much as possible. So here are some textures. Okay, Joe, you know these types of walls. I mean, it's really rough. So you still have to figure out a way to make it work. And so that day was super hot, and the paint was literally dripping, and it was literally bubbling. The paint was bubbling because it was so hot. I think it was like 110 that day, but I came back and I took a picture of it. And yeah, so you have to, another thing too is the weather, the extreme. You got a lot of homelessness, you got people you have to watch your back. I mean, you got like bees and birds pooping on you. And so yeah, so here it is with the texture. And so far it looks pretty good. So anything's possible on whatever surface you have. So what I like to do is always touch the wall, and I could always get a sense of what type of paint I would have to use and what type of brush I would have to use. And of course, the problems of, there's always consistent problems in most projects, especially with having a lift. So you get stuck. Now this little guy, tiny little guy, caused this. There was a big old oil spill. It's a new facility for biogas. So they'll filter all the wastewater and make, I guess, methane and all that stuff. And yeah, so I had to be very careful, and sadly that ended up being that way. So they had to take out the whole concrete and replace it. But because you want to make sure, because there's a lot of wildlife there. It's literally right next to the river there, and it's kind of nice at night painting when you see all these bunnies and coyotes. But these little tiny little bugs, the size of a gnat, man, they bite. I mean, they're angry at me or something, but man, they bite. So yeah, once they start coming, it's like a whole gang of them, so I have to leave. So yeah, once the sun goes down, it's like the vampires come out. So now you can see where all the, let's see, maybe, yeah, you can see how that laboratory is there? I had to work around that. So yeah, it was quite scary because, I mean, they're out there with these guys in suits, and they're all with goggles and going in there and trying to do adjustments, and they do all the measurements and all that. And I'm just going in there going in with a big old lift and trying to get my way in there. Oh, it's constantly challenges, and especially in the backside, it's just wild. So I did a whole wraparound on this mural here. So again, I guess, see all these wires? Those are like high voltage wires. I had to get the city to get permits of approval for me to get up there with the lift. And so it was chaos. It's like, maneuvering my way in, going around these wires and kind of, trying to get to paint this wall here. And, oh, it's actually working. So you can see all these wires. It's scary. It's really, really scary. And this is where I painted the Running of the Piñatas. But this wall was notorious. It was really, really, more wires there, and it was just crazy. And then the battery died off the lift, so I had to charge it. So again, constant problems. And then here's this one. So the TV bees, ironically, got chased by bees. So yeah, so again, I mean, I've been attacked by hummingbirds, butterflies, I guess, but I mean, bees are probably the only things I'm always looking out for, like nests and wasps. And so, and here's this one. I did this one in Austin, and there's me right here, the size of a football field. There's me right there. There's my foot, there's my head. And so that piece was crazy. In the middle of summer, in the most humidity place in the country, and I had to work early in the mornings and late afternoons. It was crazy because it was just misty, full of moist. So you can see right there, looks like I'm brooming, but I'm not. I'm actually literally painting. Now this is the original concept of Bill, Jack and Bill. It was supposed to be a representation of deals about the rodeo days, and so it was supposed to be a little girl riding the jackalope and kind of had the old school to the new school. and have, inspire new kids and stuff. So, and then ended up being Bill Walton. So the owner says, hey, can you put Bill Walton? I'm like, who's Bill Walton? And they're like, you don't know who it is? It's like, no. I was like, oh my God. So they're finding out as time went by, people love him, people hate him, or people don't know. So it's always constantly. So there's me painting up. This was my first high piece that I've done. And then it was quite an experience. And there it is. And so this is how I kind of grid out. Sometimes I grid the image. It depends on what surface and what the project would be. So sometimes it's easier for me to grid it. And then you can see I'm sketching now. There's a little, I don't know if you can see the grid lines. And then, of course, then I paint it. Okay? And here's another sample, too. The same thing. But I really like this piece because I love the way I came out with the hair. Luckily, I had a sponge brush. So I was just sponging it. So again, with the, those experiences that I was learning to paint on any kind of surface, but that's what, for example. Now here's my, does this look familiar? So these are my samples that I use. And there's my son. So he's the one that posed for me, and his sandal literally broke. So, and there's here's the original rendering, and there's his sandal, and there it is. And this is, and I also too, I have, in some cases I have to project, and depending on the time frame, sometimes projecting is always the best thing to do. This was supposed to be done in 2 weeks, and I did it in a week and a half. So, because in case if there's any setbacks and all that. So sure enough. And here's another Photoshop rendering, thanks to Adobe. Here's the first sample that I did, and they really wanted to have these colors. But I was trying to push something very unique, something that's kind of a new way of thinking what Tucson is all about. So I thought about something that has some kind of surrealism to it, some little bit of a whimsical to it. So this is the kind of the first beginning of it. Oh, this is a perfect example. This is how I kind of, now it's my new version of how I grid out my walls now, because I can't project it because the traffic's there, and or even stenciling or sketching it out, or graphing it out. It just takes too much time. So what I like to do is I make little tick marks. Just go down, go down. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. And then what I do, and then I place the image over that on Photoshop to have it transparent, and I just kind of connect the dots. So it's a very efficient way for me to do that, and especially in a small frame of time. So okay, here's that's the actual the painting here, and then here's the building of the Empowered Woman before it was painted. It had this 70s vibe, and so we ended up trying to come up with some concepts of trying to make this piece to kind of represent Tucson. So we thought about something. So we had a group of people to come up with some ideas on trying to figure out what empowerment meant for female, because apparently there's a lot of women here that have their own businesses here. So it's per capita, Tucson has it. So which is amazing. So we're trying to capture something that kind of had the sense of the flavor of Tucson. So we were trying to capture a young audience too. So again, these are just concepts just to kind of get the creative ideas going. And then there's an actual female boxer here in Tucson, and they said, well, we can maybe hire her and have her pose. So all these crazy ideas trying to figure it out. And then, so this one, it was kind of cool, but then it kind of reflected towards Rocky, the agave woman. So we're like, okay, we'll see what we can do. So we kept pushing it. And so we just kind of took it completely different. And then we're like, we had to go back. And then finally we came up with this. And then so I said, that was the color originally it was supposed to be, but then it was like, it's too bright. Let's give it more of a Sonoran color. And then this is where it came up. So this is the final piece. So a group of people, collaborations, ideas. So it actually captured Sonoran colors of the vegetation, the red meaning empowerment, young woman. You have the tattoo, kind of saying like I'm standing up for myself. And again, a traditional culture and diversity. And also too, the edges is will complement the buildings around it. So kind of made it contemporary. So here it is. So there's another technique too that I was using. So on gridding it out. So because we already have the bricks, this is pretty much my grid. So I had to go each and every single brick to actually draw the image. So you can use a brick, you can use anything. So any kind of objects you have definitely helps. And here's the final piece there. And yeah, and here's some other extra stuff that I just throw in there. All right, so here's some extra stuff, and that's it. Black and white paintings and some graffiti art, and yeah, that's it. Yeah, thank you.
I was trying to get your attention.
I'm sorry.